Hey, Steve Saretsky here. As always, there's going to be links, charts below. This is the Vancouver real estate market update for all the September numbers. So obviously here early in October, going to basically provide you with the official sort of stats coming out. Obviously, keep you pretty informed every single week, but this is, I guess, the official numbers in terms of what's happening, what's going on. Again, everything that I talk about reference is going to have links back to my site, Van City Condo Guide, with basically all the graphs, charts, data. I really don't think that you're going to get this much detailed information anywhere else. So basically, I can talk for days, but ultimately the data and stuff is going to back it up. So it's obviously open for interpretation. So that data is there for you to basically go and look over and analyze and come to your own conclusions. Basically, I'm going to start off with the sort of the detached market. I want to focus primarily on Vancouver because I think that obviously whatever happens in Vancouver is going to or is going to happen in other areas, particularly in the suburbs. That's what we saw on the way up, where people get priced out of Vancouver, prices shoot up in Surrey and Langley, etc. Same thing with the condo market. It's really just about, it becomes that drive to qualify, right? As you get priced out in one area, you move into another area, and they slowly drive the prices up in that other area. You could look at Wally, New Westminster, those areas that I've talked about, where you have some of the condo prices now reaching like Vancouver 2015, 2016 levels. So that's interesting. But basically on the detached market segment, to start off, this is something that I warned about, was the headlines coming out basically proclaiming that there was a rebound in sales, that the market is, picking back up. But it really couldn't be further from the truth. The market is very, very segmented. You have the condo market and you have the detached market, which are going in like very, very opposite directions. The detached market, Vancouver specifically, this is the same for basically any other area. Sales were up 31% on a year-over-year basis. So September 2016 to September 2017, comparing those 2 months, those two time periods, the sales actually increased 31%. But again, we had a foreign buyers tax come out last August. So, September we had basically sales were cut in half. We had a huge knee-jerk reaction in the market. You had the West Side recorded the fewest amount of sales in September 2016 than anything over the last decade, including 2008. So really comparing them on a year-over-year basis, like of course we're going to have some sort of rebound. But if you actually look at the detached sales now, just to put things into context, so you had a 31% increase on a year-over-year basis. But if you actually take the 10-year average for the last 10 Septembers, the 10-year average, including 2016, the 10-year average, this September 2017, detached sales in Vancouver were 32% below the 10-year average. So obviously you can see that the market is basically just kind of humming along. You can call it a rebound. I would say there's still obviously a lot of sag or slack in the detached market. The sales to active ratio is at 10%. That's incredibly low. That's what's deemed a buyer's market, where basically there's downwards pressure on prices, and the upper hand tends to be in the buyer's favor. Now, I think it's always important to take it with a grain of salt. Obviously we still have very lax credit environment. There's still some demand in the market, in the detached. So if you have a detached house that's well priced, that's in a nice area or a good lot, it's gonna sell, and sometimes you'll occasionally see multiple offers, or it'll sell over asking, and that's just the reality of it. Is whether that's even a house on the west side that's $4 million, occasionally we'll still see a home sell over asking price. But I'm basically trying to look at like the data, the fundamentals, and get a good sense of what's going on. So that's really where we're at. I think the average sales price on a year-over-year basis is up about 5%. I think the median is down 3%. So you're somewhere sort of in between there, where there's been virtually no price growth. If you're on the higher end luxury side, you're likely going to be, if you'd bought in 2016, you're likely losing money or, you know, in best case scenario, sort of breaking even, especially if you factor in, you know, transaction costs, etc. So that's really where the detached segment is. And, you know, it's interesting because that sort of leads into the condo market, which again, like I've said, is going in a very opposite direction, where particularly in the one bedroom segment, you have everybody rushing to get in. Those are driving prices up, and it's really like, it's become like a local, it's almost back to a sort of a more local market, where the people that are buying, it is right now more local, and you have, so that's, I mean, that's why you see like a pretty big sag in the detached market. I think it's a market that's very dependent on foreign money coming up and keeping those prices, inflating them. But the condo market is obviously more local driven. If you look at the numbers on a 10-year average for September, you know, condo sales in Vancouver were 19% above the 10-year average. So like, we're trending well above averages. You know, the sales to active ratio it's still a crazy 57%. It's starting to sort of go through a little bit of that cool down that you'll see in sort of the late fall, winter months. You'll naturally see the sales to active ratio start to taper off a bit. But, you know, ultimately, the condo inventory right now, other than August, this last month, like the condo inventory has never been this low. As far back as I can see is 2005. So there's no really end in sight. There's no like relief in sight for buyers in terms of like hoping for like, oh, like maybe prices will come down in the next couple months. I don't see it. I just think, again, I don't know the longer term trend. I mean, obviously we potentially have, it looks like an OSFI stress test coming in the next couple months. You know, obviously that's going to play an impact on affordability. It should help, I would think, with prices. But ultimately, until you can solve the inventory, unless you have a massive drop off in demand all of a sudden from, say, a government policy or some sort of, you know, shock to the system, you either have to have sales really drop off or new listings really pick up, and you know, sales aren't dropping off in the condo market, and new listings aren't really picking up. They picked up a little bit. I think it was I don't know that I think around 2% on a year-over-year basis. So it's just not enough. It's gonna take some time. I think that eventually the condo market, I don't know what that ceiling is. I think it has to hit a ceiling. It has to, like we saw in the detached market a year ago before the foreign buyers tax, it basically cooled off. Like basically got like buyers fatigue, and I see that coming in the condo market. I just don't know how much higher can a one bedroom go when, you know, in Vancouver your typical condo is around 600,000-700,000. Does that then push up to 800,000-900,000? You know, then you may as well just buy like a detached house. So I don't know if the argument is the condo market's going to push prices back up, and then people are like, oh, I'll just buy a detached, and then maybe the detached sets off. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to here to speculate. Or does that high end detached start to push down further and further down the chain? I really don't know. I'm not gonna make those predictions, but that's basically where you're at right now. Is you know, obviously, just to quickly recap, is the detached market obviously continues to have a lot of sag. You do have downwards pressure on prices, but you have basically the buyers are willing to wait and the sellers aren't really in a rush to sell. So there's not really like a whole lot going on in that detached segment. And then in the condo, I think there's still a lot of fear of missing out. I think that, you know, again, particularly that one bedroom segment, people are just driving prices up. They're looking at the last comparable and they're saying, okay, well, if I have to get into this market, I have to pay a little bit more than that last comparable. And so it's just like a never ending cycle. Now, again, I don't know at what point does that tire out? At what point does rising mortgage rates and a potential stress test, you know, cap that growth? But again, right now on a month-over-month basis, we're still getting growth. The average price per square foot for Vancouver condo hit a new all-time high of $1,017. So $1,017 per square foot in Vancouver, and that's, you know, that's just really where we're at. So again, don't necessarily, if you want it more sort of data or some stats, again, go to my site. I can sit here and talk forever, but I think it's better to let the charts and the graphs and do the talking. So I will be back Friday for the usual Friday recap video, basically summarizing what's happening in the market, everything that you need to pay attention to. So I'll come out with that and maybe go into a little bit more detail then. So all right, see you Friday.